The federal government has the species at risk legislation that is mandated to create plans to have 65% undisturbed habitat within caribou ranges. Alberta Northwest Species at Risk, as well as our communities, view that there can be a balance on the landscape, that the access to Crown and the survival of our wildlife is kind of part and parcel, and that we could actually do both. Looking at land planning with just caribou in mind takes out a lot of the other things that are important to our Northwest. The very first thing that we did as Northwest Species at Risk was complete a round of open houses across our regions. Stakeholders were completely unaware of what the province and the federal government was actually planning to do. We tried to explain to them what the province was doing and why, and we tried to get from them what they viewed their impact was going to be and how they viewed their restrictions moving forward. We needed to get a baseline on where we stood now and where this was going to actually end up based on our communities, our industries, and the residents in general.
In addition to the open houses, we've seen that there was quite a pushback from the region, that people were not happy with what was being laid before them. So we drafted a petition that provincial government should put a pause on caribou recovery and habitat recovery until they did a thorough social economic review. The petition was distributed throughout all of the member regions, and we ended up collecting over 9,000 signatures, probably 50% of the adult population within the Northwest Species at Risk region. We took that petition and delivered it to the legislature. I think it just added to our advocacy that led to the government kind of putting a pause on putting the conservation areas in place and carrying through with the report that was launched.
The one big thing that stuck out for us was the lack of data, and the decisions that the province and the federal government were making were on data that either was non-existent, was a guesstimate at best, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to ensure that the locals had input into that. So that led into our recommendations report. There was quite a few recommendations that were proposed by Northwest Species at Risk. A couple of the big ones were the lack of data, which leads into all of the other projects that we've done from then till now. The other one was including local on-the-ground assistance. Some of the other ones were ensuring that we had local representation on planning task forces or within the tables that were discussing what our future was going to end up looking like. The State of the Region report was partnered with the GOA and Municipal Affairs, as well as Canadian Natural Resources. And what that project was when the decisions were being made by the province on the financial as well as community data for the planning, it became glaringly obvious that a lot of data gaps existed and that some of the data was just not there at all or inaccurate. We wanted to ensure that the starting point of the data that they were going to measure all things from that point forward was as complete and as accurate as we could make it. We roped in all the way from our real estate to our senior care to hospital spaces, all the way down to LIDAR and footprint data was all sort of rolled into that State of the Region report. So it was a very large undertaking. It took a lot of man hours and a lot of people. That report is now being used to actually formulate some of the decisions and some of the measurements moving forward.
Another challenge that NWSAR has seen was to try and verify what we were being told by the environmental people in the government, that we were in a state of chaos, that our landscape was 90% disturbed, and that we had a lot of work to do to get back to the 60% undisturbed level that the government required. So we partnered with ABMI to do some LIDAR mapping, do some ground truthing, put boots on the ground in some of these caribou ranges to measure the disturbance level. The Northwest Species at Risk Committee, after we did the town hall meetings, we did lots of public engagement, we did the ground truthing. We knew we had a lot of work to do yet, so there was a huge North American conference being held in Ottawa called the North American Caribou Conference, and we thought, well, that would be a great opportunity to spread our message there. The biggest takeaway that we had from attending this conference in Ottawa was we realized that this is not just a local problem for Northwest Alberta, that there's many areas of the country that are feeling pressures from caribou conservation and government policies. We were able to bring back a lot of information that helped us on our efforts moving forward. The Northwest Species at Risk Committee is very proud of the accomplishments we made, and also very proud of the recognition that we've gained from the work we've done. We were given a prestigious award by the Forest Products Association of Canada just to recognize the community work that we're doing.
All of the projects that Northwest Species at Risk completed in the past and the ones we're going to complete in the future are all shareable. We ran into the problem when we first started was a lot of the data that's available is proprietary and it wasn't easily accessible. And so one of the targets and the goals that we wanted to ensure was that everything that we did was publicly available for anyone to use to make good decisions. So people ask us what's next for Northwest Species at Risk. And, are you still of value? Are you still active? And, what we have to keep reminding everyone is that we were created to be the voice of the people. We need to continue to partner with our forestry industry and our oil and gas industry and even agriculture to ensure that we have, for generations to come, access to the things that we need in order to have viable and sustainable communities. The only entity that's actually doing that in the province of Alberta is Northwest Species at Risk.